Alright, welcome to my Fight Night Bonfim versus Brown breakdown. YouTube decided to change how this works again, so please let me know if you can hear me, guys. Hey, Usman. All good? Alright, nice. So I changed it before, so you had to manually verify on both sides that you wanted to stream, like in your streaming platform itself and in YouTube. Now it's back to, apparently you can just do it from the streaming platform, so I guess that works. Hey everyone. Alright, so we'll do the usual, like, 10-ish minutes of questions, then I'll give a quick status update on something, and then we'll get into the breakdown. Hey JDM. Who would I take in Jones versus Pereira? I would take Pereira. I think that the heavyweight classes are kind of strange, but with Jones versus Pereira, I just don't think that Jones is really going to get him down that easily, if at all. Even if he gets him down, I don't think he's going to land damage. I think if anything, he's going to take the round. And on the feet, there is a pretty big boxing difference, along with the whole calf kicks again, which we did see that Santos was able to have a field day with. How goes the app and all the behind the scene? I'll get to that in a few minutes. I want to wait until everyone is here before I give that update, but it's a nuisance, you'll see. I will always back Jan in any fight ever, but him rematching Rob feels like when the Stewart sends Faramir to die in Lord of the Rings. That is fair, yeah. How does Ilya specifically beat Francis? If that fight were to happen, might have to do it with body strikes. I've said that for a while. I think Alex Flatline Jones' takedown defense is very good. Yeah, fair. What would Leon's game plan to beat Prates be? He definitely has to move forwards a lot more than usual, and probably use the head kick a lot, not just like as a last resort. I think if you were to mix in the head kick and takedowns more, he may have a chance of throwing off Prates' rhythm enough that like his elbows and regular punches work. It's just, we kind of know that Leon's not going to follow a game plan like that, so it is what it is. How do you think Ilya would have done against Nate if he fought under the same circumstances like Conor the first time? I think Ilya would have done better because his style is less about expending a lot of energy quickly than 145-pound Conor's strategy was. So I don't know if Ilya would have finished him, but I think Ilya would have comfortably won a decision if nothing else. What do you think about the betting scandal? Okay, I'll give a semi-controversial take on this. I still don't know if there's anything actually legitimately that off. Because people are acting like Bulgarian didn't defend himself at all. He arguably prevented like 3 finishing sequences. Now, maybe he's an amazing actor, and of course the betting line changes does indicate there was something weird about the fight. But I feel like it's much more likely that there was like a Bulgarian injury than full-fledged rigging. But I could be proven completely wrong, we'll see. How do you think a fight of JDM with the rest of the welterweight contenders play out if he gets past Islam? I think he has a solid chance against all of them, but there's no guarantees. Welterweight is all pretty close right now. This is the type of card we have to deal with to get JDM versus Islam. Yeah, valid. Jeffrey Epstein versus Ariel Helwani, bare knuckles rounder, who wins? I mean, at least Helwani technically covers combat sports, so. You believe in UFC curses like the Drake or haircut and other BS? No, I mean, it's funny to joke about, but like obviously it should not have an actual impact. How good is Islam's pure striking? Best and worst things about it? So defensively, it's relatively interesting, right? He has a system with how like he backs up and ducks and such, which makes him hard for people to find, especially when you're worried about the takedown all the time. But he is very, very predictable. So especially with like his lead hook counter and how he like drops his hands after he throws it, there are definitely weaknesses in it, to say the least. Prayer versus Izzy won and Prayer versus Enclave won ranked 100%. Fair. I heard $16 million was bet on that fight at the Hard Rock. Yeah, but that's also $16 million dollars on both sides, so I don't know like what their typical line is, how much they get bet on both sides. Without context, I don't feel like it's really like that relevant. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I thought Bulgarian just got injured and it was leaked, eventually reaching the books. Yeah, I do think it's very much a possibility. Even if he defended 3 finishing sequences, he didn't peel the choking arm that was free to pull. I feel like you learned that as a white belt. But the thing is, he did pull the choking arm. Right, like people are saying that he didn't like he didn't guard the hand basically, but he did multiple times. It could have looked like, again, the actual choke that ended up catching him was a choke that got caught in transition. Before that, even though he wasn't fighting the hands the entire time, he was still surviving the position, and you can argue that if it was enough, it was enough. So I understand what you're saying, and I can understand why it looks a little bit strange, but that could also just be Bulgarian does not have the best grappling. Like, he's a good wrestler, but he's not the best BJJ guy. Oracle infamous main event curse. It's been not consistent recently, but for a while we had a stretch there where yeah, we were definitely cursing every main event. What do you think about a title eliminator between Zahabi and Umar? I mean, Umar has a sizable advantage there, but I guess it makes sense, technically. I can see pain having affected him, leading to sudden injury narrative. Might explain the weird behavior, it's possible. Who wins kickboxing? You or Prime Askren? Kickboxing, I will 100% have confidence in myself there. Do you think Bogdan Guskov is going to severely harm Jan Blachowicz? I'm probably going to pick Jan, but it's tough because Jan is very old now. What will the fighter optimization be like? I'll get to that in like 2 to 3 more minutes. Fair enough, yeah. I've heard anecdotes of him giving Sandhagen trouble in the grappling, not exactly reliable though. Yeah, I mean, especially with what we saw with him against C-Rod, and I know some of it was, of course, fatigue, but he was making a lot of mistakes in transitions to the point that I don't know, like, really how seriously to take it. Because here's another thing, right? If Bulgarian was actually that good, and actually could have won this fight easily and made a run, why would he throw the fight? It just doesn't make sense. Like, let's say they even offered him like $300,000. If you're a top-ranked UFC fighter, you will make more than that over time. So I have a hard time seeing it just having been a logical move to throw a fight. Rumble or Yuri? I probably have to lean Rumble. What do you think about Patchy saying he was approached to throw a fight just to lose it anyways for free? I mean, it's possible. It's hard to know what happened or not. A fight I've wanted to see for a while is BSD versus Michael Chandler. What do you think of that matchup of Marauders? So especially the newer version of BSD working under Nicholas Ott, I would say takes it fairly easily because he's being a lot more intelligent now. Have you done any film study for UFC Cater? Not yet, no. I was in a heated argument with my friend about how I think Van Tyra and Pantoja would fold Mokaev like a breakfast wrap. He doesn't think so. Am I mistaken? No, you're right. I mean, I don't think Mokaev is like close to top 5. He had like his best performance was Filo, and it's not like a terribly aging performance, right? Filo's fine, but it's not like he was destroying top comp, and even the win against like the cop, like I'm not going to argue because I had a bet on Mokaev, but I don't know if he really won that fight, realistically speaking. What makes you think you're beating locked in Strikeforce, Askren? If we're talking about kickboxing, I can do it. If we're talking about MMA, definitely not. Then I have no chance. But kickboxing, his striking was never a strong suit, to say the least. I've been looking back at so many fights, and so many of them look rigged now, like Gane versus Jones. Yeah, so a lot of people are gonna like try to go the route of there's a lot of UFC fights rigged. I'm fairly confident that the number of UFC fights rigged in the last like 5 years could be counted on one hand, if anything. Bulgarian isn't good, by the way. He's a one-dimensional wrestler. Yeah, I agree with that. Who wins 205 DC or Hamzat at 205 or Alex versus DC? DC would beat Hamzat because Hamzat wouldn't be able to just like lay on him. But I would take Alex over DC. Does Leon piece Ilya up from range? He has a good style to school him. No, because Leon's gonna back up to the fence, get trapped there, and just get flatlined. I scored the fight for Cop 29-28 versus Mokaev. Yeah, that would be a reasonable scorecard. Does Leon Edwards headshot dead get his chin swept against Protez and left unconscious on the cam? It's very possible. I want to bet Muslim Salikov so badly against Medic, but I can't trust a 41-year-old. He could look old anytime now. That's fair. We'll get to that. Bowlmaker versus Hadon estimate prediction. I have not looked at Hadon tape yet, so I need to see. They should have taken a point for the cop fight 100%. Yeah, I agree there. Depending on how Tulio beats CLD, do you see him being anything at middleweight? We'll get to that in the predictions. Would Anderson Silva be the GOAT if he fought GSP and beat him? Probably. There's a good argument there. I mean, actually, probably not, because it would have been at Silva's weight class, right? So it may have demoted like GSP had he lost to Anderson Silva a little bit, but I don't know if it would boost Anderson Silva that much. Also, is this better or worse than last week's card in your eyes? I think this is worse. Ever see the story about the judge who scored a 48-47 Cheeto against Sandhagen having an argument with Sandhagen at one of Sandhagen's teammates' regional fight? Makes you realize how unprofessional it is. Yeah, the judges, from what I've heard, are an absolute mess. Like, there are stories about Cel Diamato, to say the least. Who do you think is the best and smartest MMA creator besides you? If we're talking about pure analysis, I would probably say Dan Hardy. I think in terms of predictions, Hardy can be a little bit strange at times, but if we're looking at like seeing unique elements of a fight that other people don't, I would say he's very good. All right. So a few of you were asking about the status of my coaching app, or whatever we're going to call it. So I continued the conversation with the development agencies, and it's kind of a mess in the sense that one of them was just not professional enough to the point that I think I could continue with them. And then the second one that I met with, the second one that I technically got a response from, didn't want to do anything without an NDA. And I just really don't want to sign an NDA without having a conversation at least first. So that was kind of stupid in my opinion. And then the third one was more professional, but they kind of avoided one of my questions about whether they have like everything in-house or if they're going to hire outside people to do jobs that they're not good at for their stuff. And I haven't gotten a clear answer. So I'm not sure. In the meantime, I started fixing up some of the stuff myself. So if I can't find one that I'm satisfied with, I may end up just doing the entire thing myself. It'll take a little bit more time, but it may just be worth it because I don't really trust a lot of these agencies, to say the least. What about Luke Thomas? I haven't seen that much of Luke Thomas, to be fair, so I can't be crazy confident in my opinion, but from what I've seen, I did not have the highest opinion. But again, I haven't seen that much, so it could have just been some brief missteps, let's say. Did you get inspired by Weasel? What do you think of his picks and analysis? I got, Weasel inspired me in the sense that I realized that if he could do it, anyone can do it, because his analysis is so garbage. Who you got, Morales or Brady? I'm leaning Brady, but I'm not confident. What will the app do? So it's basically made to act as a head coach that stays with you 24/7 and basically helps you plan what you're going to train every day, helps you with your trajectory of reaching your goals and so on. So it's constantly adapting to how you're performing every day, constantly like adjusting for your energy levels, for your skill development and so on. And it has a few other like cool features in there. So for example, it has like a sparring video analysis thing, right? So you could just plug in like your sparring video, answer a few questions, and it will give you some analysis on it. Who you got, Leon or Protez? I'm leaning Protez. I'm so bummed that Novel versus Haggerty and Rugrug versus Anatoly got removed from 173. Were you interested in that card? Yeah, it was looking like a good card, but the problem with 1 cards is that they always collapse. Like, I don't think any 1FC card has like made it to live without just 3 of the best fights just getting removed. I don't know what it is, but it just seems to always happen with them. What's the price of app subscription? For the coaching app, I have not set it yet. It'll probably be either 25 or 30 a month. I'm not too experienced, but I hear of the most strongest AI was just built and the software behind it gets taken and copied and made free. I'm not sure what you're saying. Sorry. You think Protez has it in him to beat good wrestlers like Bilal, Usman, Brady? I think Brady could pose problems. I think Usman is the least problematic because he doesn't have a crazy high pace. I think Bilal and Brady are a little bit more problematic. Have to make it a lot more expensive. We'll see. 1 championship big cards are actually cursed. Yeah, exactly. All right, so we'll get to the analysis, and then I'll answer some questions in between, as always. Now, I did this a little bit differently than I normally do. Normally, I just do this fully from memory. This time, I wrote some notes down. I'm not sure if it's going to trip me up looking at them or be better. We'll find out. So, the first fight is Zach Reese versus Jackson McVeigh. Because Zach Reese was such a late addition, I did not really get to watch tape on him, but I do remember some stuff, so I'll be going like just purely off of memory for Reese. So when we look at Jackson McVeigh, he is extremely long, and he fights like he's extremely long. So he's throwing a lot of kicks at distance, using like a long jab and so on. Then he's going to try to work into the clinch and use his height to like blast knees, work for like long submissions like Darces and stuff like that, etc. His biggest problem is his defense is, to say the least, anticlimactic. He relies on being long, so if you're able to get into the pocket, he doesn't really know what to do, it seems. So speed is going to be his enemy. Zach Reese also fights very long, but he's a bit more structured in terms of how he fundamentally strikes. Like, he has fundamental teeps, fundamental 1-2s, and so on that are really built for, I mean, his length, but not abusing his length to the point that he doesn't have reactive defense. The problem with Zach Reese is, besides his wrestling, which has been really terrible, is that his decision making is just super questionable at times. So even though he has the skills to go very far, the decision making has been kind of holding him back. I am going to have to go Zach Reese here, and I'm going to say he gets a TKO, but especially with him being short notice and already having not the reputation for making the best decisions, to say the least, that you never really know in this one. Miles Johns versus Daniel Marcos. So Miles Johns started as a wrestler, then he knocked someone out and kind of got obsessed with the striking. Then he turned into more of a striker for a few fights. Now he's kind of back to blending the two properly again. So Johns has a very explosive dependent style, let's say. For his striking, he's loading up on a lot of overhands, or he's like bombing hooks in the pocket. His takedowns are all like blast doubles, like try to rip you off the ground and throw you down. Because he uses so much explosiveness, he tends to gas fairly quickly. He has gotten a little bit better at it. It used to be he gassed after 1 round, now he kind of gasses after 2 rounds, but you can know for sure that he is definitely going to slow down in round 3, even if the fight is going pretty much perfectly for him. On the other side, Marcos has a more fundamental Muay Thai style. He never really moves his head, and he fights pretty much purely as a counter-striker. The counter-striking part can be problematic because if his opponent is not like opening up significantly, sometimes he ends up in super boring fights. So it happened against Montel Jackson, as neither of them wanted to commit, so just nothing happened for 15 minutes, and Jackson kind of like edged the point fight. Marcos has added a fair amount of wrestling into his game, so if it's a very low output fight, the takedowns may be how he tries to like secure the rounds and such. His knees in the clinch are pretty solid, and he's really able to usually take advantage of however his opponent is going to come in if they make any mistake in it whatsoever. Because of the fact that Johns is loading up on everything and Marcos is looking to counter, I am going to lean Marcos here. The only concern, of course, is the low activity, because if he falls behind, I don't think he's going to like turn it up and find a comeback finish. So depending on how round 2 is going, that very well might dictate the fight, because I'd lean towards John winning round 1, and Marcos very clearly winning round 3. I think Marcos will probably pull off 2 and win a decision, but it could go either way. All right, Tisha Pennington versus Denise Gomes. So both of them are very overhand dependent strikers, interestingly. Pennington is more of the point striker. She doesn't really have power in her hands. Pretty much all of her fights go to decision. Gomez has gone to decision a lot, but she does have somewhat one-shot knockout power in her hands, and she has gotten a few stoppages because of that. Now I'm going to look at my notes for this one because they are more detailed. So yeah, Pennington uses a lot of overhands, but she adds it into combinations. It's not like one and done overhands, and she also like will bait something and then counter with the overhand. So for using overhands, her striking is a lot more dynamic than it sounds. She is a bit reckless in the pocket though. She doesn't necessarily guard at all, which definitely leaves her open if someone just sits down in a power shot there, because she doesn't really have the ability to hurt you. If she feels like she's getting momentum, part of her issue is she will overchase and run into takedowns, which could be a problem in this matchup. So Gomez is going to blast kicks more so on the outside. Because she knows she's so powerful, she will just lunge into the pocket and let go with like hook overhand combos repetitively. She does not have the best fight IQ, to say the least. She will rock someone and then clinch for 2 minutes straight, and this will happen on repeat. So there are multiple fights where she probably could have found a finish and just didn't because she wanted to clinch for absolutely no reason. She'll sling the overhands like Pennington, both proactively and reactively, but unlike Pennington, there's no real setup. All of her takedowns are body lock based, so it's not going to be as much a problem for Pennington here, most likely, in terms of okay, Pennington overextends and then Gomez shoots a blast double or something. So it will just be Gomez will try to push you against the fence, grab the body lock, and tear you down from there. I'm going to lean towards a Pennington decision as an underdog because she's just a cleaner striker. There is the power discrepancy. If she takes a big shot in the round, it could definitely sway it. But generally speaking, she is the better fighter, and as long as she doesn't get rocked, she should be able to squeak out a close decision. So I'm going to say 29-28, the regular WMMA expectation here. All right, Josh Hockett versus Max Gimenez. So Josh Hockett is actually very small for a heavyweight. I think he could probably make light heavyweight fairly easily if he tried. I think he's just taking advantage of the fact that heavyweight is definitely the lowest skilled division. He's pretty much a pure wrestler. He is just going to shoot a double leg. Let's see. Yeah. He's just going to run across, shoot a double leg. He may maintain the body lock on the ground, so kind of like Bulgarian used to before last fight, where he's just going to use the body lock to adjust positions and then go for ground and pound. He is looking to establish the crucifix and then go for the ground and pound TKO. Does not really look for submissions at all. It's just trying to punch you, get you back to the ground repetitively. Because he is a smaller fighter, I do think he has slightly better cardio than the average heavyweight, but the lack of size could play a role in this matchup. So with Gimenez, one thing to note is that there's pretty much no available MMA tape on him. He is a no-gi BJJ athlete, and in MMA, all of his fights have been super low level with the very, very low definition like highlight tapes in random parts of the internet and nothing semi-official to the extent that you really know how he's going to look. But going off of his jiu-jitsu competitions, he's extremely big, and he kind of just grapples like that. He's kind of just trying to throw you around, reverse position, get to the back, and choke you out using his size. There's nothing that I've seen that's been like overly technical off of the back. Not that he has a bad guard by any means, but it's not like he's going to be most likely like throwing up crazy triangles and such. So mainly he's looking for you to engage. He's going to like either get a body lock or an over under and just use his like strength advantage to try to rip you to the ground and work from there. One thing I did notice in his BJJ though is that he definitely fatigues as it goes along, especially if he is off of his back. So I think that's what's going to happen in this fight. I think that Hockett is going to have a very hard time in round 1, and we may see like pretty much a stalemate or maybe a submission attempt from Gimenez at some point. But then round 2, maybe early round 3, Gimenez is going to fatigue and Hockett could probably find the TKO. But I do find it crazy that Hockett is such a massive favorite after looking pretty terrible on Contender Series. So that is what it is. On the feet also, I have no idea how Gimenez is going to look. Hockett does not have much, though, I can tell you that. He will basically just shoot as soon as possible. He does not want to be striking. Is your app ChatGPT Plus? It is not. I'm kind of confused what that question is, but no. John Silva fan reporting here. Hello? Okay. So, Mayra Bueno Silva versus Jacqueline Cavalcanti. So, Mayra Bueno Silva on the ground is definitely the most dangerous WMMA fighter in this division. She can find the armbar off of her back, she'll look for the ninja choke and so on. So basically, if you're initiating the grappling at any point in a fight, you are definitely in danger against Silva. On the feet, she's very rigid. She has the Muay Thai style again, but that like to an extreme where again she basically has no head movement and she's basically just throwing full power, relatively stiff and so on. So similar to Miles Johns in terms of the throwing with full power issue, Silva will slow down as the fight goes along, so her striking after round 1 is a lot more dangerous, and after round 2 is like barely relevant at all. Cavalcanti is a much more fluid boxer. She's a very high striking defense percentage. Like technically all of her defense percentages are relatively high. She throws constant calf kicks on the outside. She's going to move a lot and feint 24/7. Her volume isn't spectacular given the number of feints she throws. Like it looks like she's doing a lot more than she does, but she does land fairly clean, though without much power to say the least. She will give up the body lock at times, and Cornell did get to mount very easily on her. So there definitely is a concern that if Silva does get a takedown, this may be very easy for her to end the fight here. I am going to lean towards a Cavalcanti decision, though, because Silva's takedowns themselves have not been really spectacular. It's been more so when other people initiate grappling on her that she's able to take advantage of it. So Cavalcanti, as long as for some reason she like doesn't clinch or shoot a takedown or something, should be able to just piece up Silva at range. Silva may get round 1 just because she's so explosive there, but rounds 2 and 3 definitely should favor Cavalcanti, so I'll say 29-28 decision. All right, Ricky Simone versus Raoni Barcelos. So Ricky Simone has the wrestling base, but actually has kind of moved away from being overly like reliant on spamming takedowns. So he is fairly technical, but he does use a fair number of hooks and overhands and such in the pocket. He will set it up properly, though. It's not like he's just spamming the hooks and overhands. It's like, okay, he's waiting for you to enter, and then he'll come around with a hook, like after having a high guard up to absorb a shot and so on. He will use the jab to try to set it up and bait you in, but overall, he's not really doing like technical striking from the outside. He wants you to enter the pocket, or he will enter the pocket himself. He'll shoot off of his own hooks so that you get the guard up before he shoots under it. And mainly, again, his defense is like the high guard. It's a more educated guard than someone like David Onama, though, where he's just not moving at all. So Simone will like move it to intercept shots and such. Simone is a little bit momentum dependent. If he gets behind, it does get a lot more difficult for him to come back. He doesn't have the best chain wrestling, but if he is able to get a takedown, he is relatively dangerous on top. He has arm triangles, fairly hard ground and pound, etc. So Barcelos, on the other hand, he uses opponents' mistakes to set up the takedowns and usually tries to catch kicks to do so. On the feet, he is very high pressure, but he's also extremely reliant on his hooks, and he does not set it up like Simone does in really any capacity. He just throws it. His defense on the feet is kind of abysmal in all honesty, and he's just relying on the pace breaking his opponent and eventually opening up something that he can use to either secure the round or the finish. His BJJ is good, but it feels like, except for pure BJJ in this fight, he is going to be worse at everything else here. So I do think Simone is probably going to take a decision here. I would like to see Simone chase a finish, but it's probably just going to be a typical like Simone 30-27 decision off of doing a bit better on the feet, maybe rocking Barcelos once or twice, and then maybe like 1 or 2 takedowns from Simone to just make it clear. Ricky Simone is good. Yeah, he's solid. It feels like he hasn't put things fully together and reached the level that he could given his technical skill set. I need Barcelos to win so we can fight Zahabi for the retirement home. That would be interesting, but I do think that they're very different levels right now. I think that Zahabi is improving a lot. Barcelos is still very reliant on his pace. And even though he got the win against Cody Garbrandt, he got rocked in round 1, and Cody probably should have chased the finish a little bit more there. So we'll see what happens here. I'm going Barcelos, picked him over Payton and Cody. I mean, it's a sort of fair play. I just don't really see his path to victory here personally, because I don't think he's going to out-wrestle Simone. And on the feet, there is a relatively big difference. So he has to get a takedown and secure enough control time that he's able to get the decision, which I just don't personally see happening, but we'll see what happens. Corey versus O'Malley without factoring the grappling. I think that, again, Corey is more technical, but he has such pillow hands is the problem. So I'd probably give the edge to O'Malley because of that. Simone has hands kind of, sort of. Yeah, exactly. Like, he can do damage, it just doesn't always happen. Alright. Fighter Emil versus Jamal Emmers. So I am very much not a fan of Emil's style, in all honesty. He is very spam hook dependent. He is all pressure, very little technique. He kind of just does stuff. It's hard to analyze him because I don't think he knows what he's going to do. He just shoots at random times, throws hooks at random times, decides to jab at random times. Like, there's no real rhyme or reason, but he is relatively durable. He can maintain a high pace, and that definitely can wear on people. Jamal Emmers, on the other side, is a sniper with a lot of power, especially in the early rounds. So he'll chop with low kicks on the outside and basically use the distance management to decide when he is going to enter. He'll be very picky about it. He is kind of going to sling his punches, so it's not like sharp like 1-2s. It's like, okay, he's like definitely overextending on everything he throws, but that's part of the style. He keeps the high guard when he's on the outside, and really just focuses on his straights and overhands. Doesn't really even look to focus on landing anything else with that much power. The biggest problem with Emmers that we've seen multiple times is that if you can survive him early, you definitely can break him, and Emil is definitely someone who's capable of doing that. So even though I feel like Emmers is definitely the more skilled fighter here, I do have to give the edge to Emil because I don't think Emil is going to get knocked out early just because he is relatively durable, and I don't think Emmers is going to hit him with something as hard as a Delgado knee. And if, again, Emmers can't get him out early, Emil's just going to spam stuff until he's able to break him and find a finish. So I'm going to say Emil round 2 TKO. Was Delgado robbed against Wood? Yes, he was. You could argue round 2 for Wood, even though I still had Delgado in round 2. But rounds 1 and 3, I didn't think there was like any argument for Wood whatsoever, in all honesty. All right, Christian Leroy Duncan versus Marco Tulio. So this fight, in all honesty, at least to me, is probably the most interesting fight on the card, because whoever wins this fight is likely going to go very far in the division. So CLD has a very pretty style. Like, he switches stances a lot. His movement looks very clean. He throws a lot of spinning attacks very seamlessly. He's going to chop kicks from the outside, use the stance switches to pull you into different angles and land. So in his last fight, he was able to basically pull, what's his name? Eric Anders, yeah. He was able to pull Eric Anders basically into the spinning elbow. It wasn't like he just threw a spinning elbow out of nowhere. So he is definitely evolving in the sense that he still spins, but now he's spinning for a reason rather than just spinning for the sake of it. CLD does not like pressure, though. If you pressure him constantly, it stifles a lot of his offense because he does need to use the angles and the distance to set up his attacks. He also has the questionable fight IQ in terms of he'll just clinch for no reason, and when he has a striking advantage, with zero explanation whatsoever. So I think it was 2 fights ago, he just clinched for like 10 minutes of the fight when he was very clearly winning at range. So stuff like that happens in a CLD fight for some reason. The movement dependence sometimes opens him up to being outgunned, which is like basic, very technical stuff. So against Armen Petrosian, that's basically what happened, where Petrosian was just technical and patient enough and non-reactive to the movement that he was able to just rock him a few times and land the basic strikes until he was able to take that decision. Marco Tulio, on the other hand, is much more fundamentals. So he'll lunge in with quick combos, but he's a bit open when he does enter. He has gotten countered in the pocket a few times because he doesn't really move his head when he goes in. He throws the 1, sometimes delays the 2 a bit behind it, so it can catch people a bit off because of the asynchronous timing, or whatever you want to call it. Everything he throws is a little bit stiff. It's always bothered me a bit because it just feels like he doesn't have fluidity, but he is extremely powerful. Most of the stuff he throws is purely proactive. He doesn't really like counter and such, so he's kind of like a Muay Thai striker in that sense. Julio also does have the wrestling, which he can go to, but he tends to only use it when he really feels like he's going to need to. Like, he won't shoot in most of his fights. I'm going to go against the public here and pick CLD, because Tulio is probably not going to pressure CLD. I haven't seen Tulio have the ability to pressure consistently, or even at all, in all honesty. And I don't think his fundamentals are so beyond CLD's that it's going to shut him down. So if you allow CLD to use space and just throw stuff on the outside and look for spinning elbows and all of that, eventually I think he's probably going to find it. So I'm going to take CLD by TKO here in round 2. And if CLD is able to take this, or honestly whoever does take this, is probably going to be looking towards the rankings very soon. Yeah, so a lot of you guys are on Tulio, which I definitely expected, because it does seem like the public really likes Tulio this week. We will see what happens, though, because if Tulio is going to win this fight, he has to evolve and not be that stiff all the time. Because again, CLD is the opposite. He is very fluid, and now that fluidity can cause issues because he's so reliant on using the fluidity. But yeah, Tulio has to figure out a way to disrupt that somehow. We'll take a quick break before doing the last few fights. I like the way Tulio fights. His win against Potiera was brutal, and he battered Gore, not the highest level comp, but entertaining nonetheless. What was very concerning, though, is that Gore landed a pretty big counter on him, and he did hit Tulio a few times. He rocked Tulio once, but every time that Gore landed, albeit it was a few times, it seemed like he was landing big. And Gore is terrible. So if gore is landing on you, and obviously MMA math doesn't necessarily work, but if someone as low level as gore can land on you, I am definitely worried in you fighting CLD so early. I would like Tulio to mix in grappling. Yeah, that would be a good decision for him. You think Tulio has the Grum style of striking we were talking about the other week? Not quite. No, he's a little bit different. So the Grum style, I don't even know how to fully explain it. It's like, I would say the difference here is that Tulio does reset and does get out of danger. So Tulio's danger is not really on the outside. It is more so when he enters recklessly and the fact that he doesn't really move his head there. Someone like Grum, say, it might move his head a little bit more, but I don't like his defense like between throwing and such. So Tulio's style actually is less pretty in my opinion than Gurum's, but I would say it is still more effective. So I'm not saying like Tulio's style is all ineffective or anything. I just think it definitely needs a level of evolution here. Best fight on the card, CLD would be much harder to damage than Trajan Gore. Yeah, exactly. All right. So Chris Padilla versus Ismail Bonfim. This is an interesting fight, partially because when the Bonfim brothers fight on the same card, which is a fair amount of the time, you have to imagine that the results of the first one are going to influence the results of the second one. So if Ismail Bonfim wins, I think the chances of Gabriel Bonfim winning definitely go up, and vice versa. Like if Ismail Bonfim got knocked out, I just can't see Gabriel Bonfim doing well here. Okay, so to get to that point, so Chris Padilla is, I would call him kind of a counter fighter. Not that he's a counter striker necessarily, though he can be. He kind of just fully fixates his game plan on doing what you are bad at. So he doesn't really have like a core strength or core skill set or anything like that. So, for example, in his first fight in the UFC, he was just looking for the overextensions so he could shoot takedowns and then look for the submission there. He wasn't really looking to strike on the feet. He just threw out a few low kicks and such just to pass the time and make sure those overextensions happened. Then against Rongju, he was specifically looking for the elbow counters because of the fact that Rongju does throw the hooks in the pocket. Then against, what's his name? The tall guy. Jai Herbert. Against Jai Herbert, that was a problem because Herbert wasn't giving him many openings. So I don't know exactly what the game plan in that fight was, but we did see that basically he used the fact that it was very low volume to push Herbert against the fence and just land a few knees to kind of, I don't want to say steal, but edge the rounds, I guess. The biggest problem for that style is if you don't have a core skill set, let's say, then once people are no longer giving you massive opportunities, I don't know how well you're going to be able to perform. So that's why a lot of people are very high on Padilla, whatever. But I'm not exactly sold yet. Ismail Bonfim, on the other hand, he has extremely good defense, like shockingly good defense statistically, but it's mostly based off of just like simple distance management. Like most of the people who you see have very high defense do something weird. Like for example, with Zahabi, right? Like his stance is a little bit strange and the way like he enters is a little bit strange, and that's why he's able to maintain such a high defense. Bonfim just moves in and out at the right times. He's never going to overextend when something isn't there, and when he does go in, his head movement getting out is very clean, so he's not getting countered that much in the pocket. Bonfim is very reliant on looping shots, mainly hooks, sometimes overhands, but he's very good at timing it. So everything he does is done with purpose and to set up the next thing he's going to do. It's very interesting because usually I don't like quote unquote hook spammers, but he has a nuance with his looping shots that makes him very interesting to watch, at least to me. He will level change sometimes, but mainly it's just to make you think about it. And then once he feels like he has your rhythm, he will just start throwing pretty much anything, which is how we got like the flying knee finish against McKinney. Because once he gets his timing, he gets more and more precise until he finds a kill shot. After his fight against BSD, it did feel like he got a little bit more tentative, but we'll see how he performs here. So I am going to pick Bonfim. I feel like he's just the more talented fighter, and I think the fact that he is so talented defensively is going to make this a very difficult fight for Padilla to fight. Because if Padilla is looking for an opening, it may just not come. And in the meantime, Bonfim's going to be landing like 3 to 4 like big hooks per minute, which are going to score if nothing else. I do think Bonfim will actually take the TKO here, because once Padilla is not finding something, Bonfim will get more and more comfortable until he is basically just lighting up Padilla and will look for the finish. So Bonfim by second round TKO is going to be my pick here. How does that work? Are they just motivated by each other? Well, like, they're family, right? So if you see your sibling lose a fight, and a fight is like more personal than a sports game, right? If you lose a sports game, like football or whatever, that's whatever. But if you lose a fight, potentially take damage, get knocked out, something like that, that's something that is emotionally hard to deal with if it's a family member, which is what makes the fighting on the same card potentially risky or very rewarding. Because if they have a great performance, then yeah, it will be motivating to go out and have a good performance yourself. But if they don't, well, yeah, I mean, then you have to fight with like the emotional strain if you just watch your sibling potentially get knocked out. Padilla's good everywhere, but not great anywhere. Yes, exactly. Padilla has proven to be a bit underrated. So I think Padilla has, again, good game planning with his coaches. I just don't think skill for skill he is underrated, but I always thought you were looking at notes while breaking down these fights live. I was not. Yeah, now I am. I'm looking at notes occasionally now, but before I was doing everything purely by memory. Bonfim taking Vince to decision was alarming for me, though. But to be fair, everyone takes Vince to a decision. Like, let's look at his record. Where are we? Yeah, so Vince has only gotten finished twice in the UFC, once in his debut in 2012, and then once by Gregor Gillespie, and that was by submission after 7 takedowns. So, like, yeah, while it would have been nice to see Bonfim get a finish, realistically, like, Pichel was just weirdly durable and had pretty solid defense. All right. So the oldest fighter on the card, Muslim Salikov versus Uros Medic. So Muslim Salikov is basically the Kung Fu Panda of the UFC. Like, he has the same build, he fights the same way. It's really interesting. So as he's aged, he has slowed down a bit, but he has that Kung Fu style with a lot of like dynamic kicks. He'll throw a lot of calf kicks, he'll throw spinning kicks and so on, and he even kind of throws from his hips with like more of the traditional martial arts style. Because of the fact that he slowed down, he has gotten caught a few times. So the fact that he got put out by Randy Brown was kind of partially because of the fact that there was such a massive speed difference in that fight. His main plan seems to be, in modern times, use the calf kick from the outside, counter with the hands if someone comes in, and then if someone just waits and isn't really like committing, then wait until they're compromised by the calf kick and then start on the spinning kicks. As I was saying, if his opponent is fast, it's a problem. The lead hook when going forwards is usually his go-to, and then sometimes he'll throw in a spinning back fist, like if you try to throw off of the lead hook. So his boxing is not his strong suit, to say the least, but he does have ridiculous power, as we did see against Leal, and he definitely can hurt you. Uros Medic is a much younger, faster striker who will try to maintain a high pace and catch you early. But I feel like this doesn't necessarily benefit him because it seems like his counter left hand is really his best weapon. He has a massive problem where when he moves forwards and throws, he drops his rear hand after and has just gotten caught clean by a cross many times. That's how he got knocked out by Soriano. That's how he got dropped by, what's his name? Urbina, and he also got dropped by Semmelsberger in pretty much the exact same way all 3 times. So he has massive defensive issues that he just kind of refuses to fix. Defensively, he relies a lot on distance, but the problem again is like, yeah, well, he is fast and somewhat technical. I don't know if he has good enough defensive awareness to really be fighting like that. So I have to pick Salikov here, despite his age. Because, in all honesty, I just don't think Medic is UFC level. Like, he hits hard, he's dangerous, he is entertaining in the sense that he is always going to be in a fight that has a finish, but he's just not good enough defensively to be fighting someone with one punch knockout power, in my opinion. So I'm going to say Salikov wins by round 1 TKO. I'm going to say it comes by a head kick after like damaging Medic's calf a bit and opening it up as like he gets slower on his retreats. Medic is pretty chinny, and if Medic pressure again going in and out like he usually does, as he call Salikov catching Medic and knocking him out. Yeah, agreed. And being the underdog is so dumb. Yeah, that's the only thing that really worried me about this fight from a betting perspective is everyone seems to be picking Salikov, yet he's still the underdog, which sometimes tells you like someone knows something we don't. But by all logic, I still do think Salikov should win, so we'll see what happens. I think Medic is the better fighter at this point, but he has absolutely no chin. I don't know if he's better, but I could see, like, because he's faster, he looks better in that sense, so I get what you're saying, but I'm not sure, like, skill for skill, he's actually better. For instance, how would they know a lot we don't? Fair. Medic has 5 wins in the UFC, not sure how you could say he's not UFC level. Sure, but let's look at who these 5 wins are. So we have... I barely even know who these two are. Like, I know I've seen them fight, but who cares? Like, they're not in the UFC anymore. Lost to Jalen Turner, beat to Omar Morales, I'm pretty sure not in the UFC anymore. Beat Matthew Stammelsberger, not in the UFC anymore. Got destroyed by Oralby. Beat Tim Means, I don't know if he got cut or he retired, but I'm pretty sure he's done. Got destroyed by Soriano. Beat Gilbert Arbino, who is either already cut or about to be cut. I don't know which. So he has not beaten anyone who is either still in the UFC, not retired, and so on. Like, his quote-unquote UFC wins are not really legitimate UFC wins. Okay, so Matt Schnell is a very fast combo puncher. He likes to stay in the pocket for meaningful amounts of time and has reasonable instincts in terms of like moving defensively there. The problem is he struggles at like a technical range, so if you're not fighting purely in the pocket, he gets caught a lot more, and he does not have the chin to afford getting caught a lot more because he will get put out fairly easily. If he is not pushing a pace, he is usually falling behind, and the problem is that between his chin and his questionable takedown defense, that usually just does not go well for him, because he'll be pushing a pace, doing okay, and then he either get caught or taken down or something like that, and then all of a sudden he's getting finished. Morales is a pressure fighter. On the feet, he kind of just spams 1-2s and sometimes teeps, but he's generally just waiting for opportunities for his takedowns. He'll use kicks and overextensions to time it. He's not going to usually just shoot takedowns out of nowhere until he feels like he has you, like, gassing out or hurt or so on. Generally speaking, he is relatively patient. His striking defense is okay, but he kind of negates the fact that he's not the most technical striker by just throwing, like, the 1-2. On the ground, he is going to just look for ground and pound until like you open your guard and give him opportunities, then he'll pass and look for the sub. He does tend to end the fights via the sub, but he is perfectly content if he stays in your guard and just ground and pounds for the full 5 minutes of a round. Of course, as a massive favorite, I have to pick Morales here, and I do think he can find the submission here. I don't think Schnell is going to just get knocked out cold like in the stereotypical way after he fought, what's his name? Blanking on everyone's names today. Urseg, yeah. Got knocked out by Urseg, and then it seemed like Urseg had crazy knockout power, but it was just Schnell does not have the best durability. But yeah, I don't think Schnell's going to go out like that, but I do think he might get tagged once or twice, and then the takedowns will get opened up. And then on the ground, Morales should be able to advance to like the rear naked choke. So I'm going to say second round rear naked choke finish. Schnell, worst pound for pound chin of all time. I feel like there's a worse one, but oh no, yeah, Lucas Brzeski is probably the worst pound for pound chin. And it's just funnier because he's a heavyweight. somehow match Knowles in a co-main. Yeah, I don't know. Thoughts on Schnell having to get escorted by cryopod to protect him from getting chinned by bad conditions? Fair. You have an early prediction on Pantoja versus Van. I think Van will just get mauled. I have to do tape study, but I do think it's a more interesting fight than people are making it out to seem. I think that Van does have a style to make it interesting. I think Tulio versus Duncan should be the co-main event. Yeah, 100%. I would not mind if Tulio versus Duncan was the main event. In all honesty, I feel like this fight could be 3 rounds. Tulio versus Duncan, I would love to have the possibility of it going 5 rounds. Remember Schnell getting knocked out cold by Tiny Hammerfist? Yeah, that was crazy. I think with how Pantoja did with Urseg, we could see Van pull a huge upset. It is very possible, yeah. I'll talk about that a little bit more after the main event. So, Gabriel Bonfim versus Randy Brown. We've seen 2 versions of Bonfim. The version of Bonfim that we saw in the early UFC events, in his early UFC fights, was all pace and looking for the finish right off the bat. So he would just get into the pocket as soon as possible, start spamming hooks. Now, he doesn't have the best technique on his hooks, but his hooks are ridiculously fast for the division. Like, we don't really talk about this much because Bonfim tends to finish the fights on the ground, but Bonfim's hand speed is genuinely kind of insane. So he'll spam the hooks in the pocket, then wait until he tags you or opens up a takedown, go for that, get you down, then try to go for the guillotine and so on. After a loss to Delby, because of the fact that he gassed out, he started taking his time a little bit more and looking for openings. So now he has a very technical jab at distance. He uses knees up the middle a lot to discourage people from getting too close without shooting the takedown itself. And then he will basically just throw jabs, 1-2s, and calf kicks until you open up the takedown. He'll get that, slam you down, look for submissions there. He doesn't really throw much ground and pound on top. He is really submission hunting. So that would be like the big game changer he could add, is if he added like solid ground and pound, it would open up the submission a lot quicker, in my opinion. Randy Brown is a fast and powerful striker who kind of slings his punches. I've said this a few times regarding a few people, but he throws very quickly and powerfully because of the fact that he slings, but slinging also projects and leaves you a little bit overextended a lot of the time. He uses the fact that he has a very long reach for the weight class to wing lead hook counters as his opponents come in, but because of, again, the reliance on the length and the slinging, in the pocket he gets a little bit open. When he thinks that he is in a striking sequence, he will sometimes kind of like not blitz forwards, but sling a few strikes in a row, and that will open up his hips to getting taken down. Now, I feel like we're seeing a little bit of an overcompensation here. Randy Brown was underrated for a while, so now people are like basically like somewhat glazing Randy Brown and making him out to be like this amazing striker. While I definitely think that he is better than people perceived him in the past, his style has some very clear issues, from him tending to back up in a straight line to, again, feeding his hips when he comes forwards, being open in the pocket, and so on. And it really feels like Bonfim has the style to exploit this. Randy Brown, of course, will have the advantage if the fight goes late, but if Bonfim does press the matter and try to get an early finish, I feel like he's going to get it here. As Brown, especially, even with his footwork, right? He's very heavy on the lead leg, and with Bonfim just spamming the calf kick now, I could see it getting chewed up. Randy Brown, of course, has such a large reach that maybe Bonfim's jab won't be as effective, but if he's going to start slinging punches moving forwards, which, again, in my opinion, is not advisable when you have such a long reach advantage, because you don't have to sling to land. The slinging just opens you up more. But yeah, so Bonfim has perfect ways of baiting Brown forwards into the takedown, and then probably the guillotine finish here. So Bonfim, in my opinion, would be well suited to chase the early finish, because I do think it is here. And also, if he goes into later rounds with Brown, it's just not going to go well for him. So I'm going to say Bonfim wins by first round guillotine, kind of like reminiscent to his early UFC fights, where he gets in the pocket, maybe tags Brown once or twice, then goes to the takedown. As Brown tries to get up, pulls the guillotine and gets a finish. Randy Brown loves fumbling right when he's about to get ranked and has hype. Yeah, that is true. pick for JDM versus Islam, and how confident are you of it? I am very mildly leaning JDM. Bonfim does have a very powerful pass jab. Yes. I hope I'm not mistaken, but I believe Gabriel Bonfim is supposed to have had a professional boxing career. If so, do you see it in his striking? Honestly, not really. Maybe in his jab, right? Like, his jab is very clean. If he did have a professional boxing career, though, I would have thought like his hooks would be a little bit more technical, because even though they're very fast and like, okay, I could see his hand speed maybe like reflecting boxing, it feels like the technique of his hooks definitely could be cleaned up a little bit, to say the least. Like, if he were to clean that up, he would be a lot more dangerous in the pocket than he already is, in my opinion. What fights are you most confident in, and which fighter do you think has the most value? And for value, we'll say Salikov. For confidence, probably Morales, realistically. I'm glad someone is giving Bonfim respect, because he gets a lot of hate for the Wonderboy fight. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. A lot of people are saying, like, oh, Wonderboy is 40 whatever, and arguably beat Bonfim. But the reality is that Wonderboy is so difficult to fight, even for a wrestler, because of his movement on the outside. Like, if you go back to Wonderboy's Johnny Hendricks fight, like, Johnny Hendricks just could not shoot on Wonderboy because his footwork was way too good for Hendricks to set it up. Now, of course, some of the chain wrestlers and like Gilbert Burns were able to get around that, yes, but they are top of the weight class wrestlers. Bonfim has some time before he has to get there. And of course, the fact that Wonderboy fought so many back-to-back definitely helped in terms of his ability to learn how to defend it. So Randy Brown doesn't have the same footwork on the outside, and I don't think was just going to have the same overall wrestling defense, even if like Wonderboy's technical like takedown defense statistic may be lower. He's 5-0 in pro boxing and did a lot of amateur. That's interesting. Yeah, I'm surprised he doesn't have slightly cleaner technique in his hooks then. I just got here. Do you think Marco Tulio goes far at middleweight, and are you picking him? No, I pick CLD to win, but I could definitely see Tulio still going far at middleweight. I just think his style needs a little bit of reworking because he's a little too stiff. All right. I think we went through the predictions a little bit quicker than we usually do today. I don't know if having notes like kind of condensed my summaries of each fight since my thoughts were in more order, or what exactly happened. Maybe it's just because the fight night's like not even great quality, so I have less to say about the fights. That's also possible. Do you see Bonfim engaging more in striking after his lackluster performance last fight? I don't think that striking will ever be his primary game plan, but I definitely think he'll be more willing to strike than people expect. Can you go over predictions again quickly? Yeah, sure. Zach Reese TKO round 1, Marcos decision, Pennington decision, Hackett TKO round 2, Cavalcanti decision, Simone decision, Emil TKO round 2, Duncan TKO round 2, Bonfim TKO round 2, Salikov TKO round 1, Morales submission round 2, Bonfim submission round 1. Am I wrong to be confident on Gomez? One thing I noticed in tape is the noticeably slowing down of Tisha. I don't think she'll have the volume or pace needed to beat Gomez. The reason why I'm not confident in Gomez and why I'm picking Pennington is because there is definitely a massive difference in boxing nuance, right? Like, Gomez is just throwing stuff. Pennington sets it up. Like, she definitely understands, like, okay, I'm going to bait this out, and then I'm going to throw a combo that ends in an overhand, and then reset and all of that properly. I think Barcelos stands a decent chance, especially if he lands a potent head strike and cuts Ricky early. I'm still leaning Ricky Simone, though. I just don't see how he's going to land anything significant because he's just so behind in striking technique. But fair. Marco Tulio has the same problems every Shudo box fighter. Bad defense, not good head movement, and a little stiff. Fair. What are your thoughts on the betting scandal? So I said this earlier. If you go back to early in the stream, you'll see like my full nuanced response. But I'm not convinced that Bulgarian actually threw the fight. He may have. I'm not confident either way. But I feel like people are jumping to a lot of conclusions, and especially seeing the misinfo after, with people like spreading the rumors that like 100 fights are being investigated and all that BS, which was proven to not be true at all. I don't like trust any of the media right now in terms of like what they're saying about the fight and what's going to happen and so on. It's a Gomez or pass fight for me. Gomez is going to initiate the grappling and should be able to have the edge. It's possible if she uses the grappling, but her fight IQ has not been spectacular. Never forget when Joanna massacred Tisha Pennington. Yeah, I mean, Joanna massacred a lot of people, to be fair. That's not rumors? Yeah, no, it is a rumor, right? It's the only fight being investigated is the Bulgarian fight. Like, everyone was bullshitting this, and there was even, like, journalists saying again that, oh, now they're, like, auditing everyone at the gym and all this stuff, and that was all proven false, right? There's a lot of misinfo going around, so be careful about what you trust in this case, because 95% of it has been false. Who, in your opinion, has the best defensive talent, not with stats, but your eyeballs? Strickland, probably. Strickland is very defensively sound. I know everyone talks about like the Alex Pereira sequence, and yeah, of course, Alex was able to catch him, but generally speaking, I would say Strickland has the best defense. The FBI is involved in the specific Bulgarian fight. They are not investigating anything else. Not yet, at least. Maybe they will eventually. But all the bullshit about them, like, investigating 100 fights was completely false. On to Van versus Pantoja. I mean, Van obviously has good takedown defense. We saw it against Ray, but Pantoja doesn't shoot traditionally. His trips are so hard to read. Like, he trips you, always pressuring you onto the back foot. It's weird. I mean, I wouldn't say it's hard to read. I think that it's relatively predictable because we know exactly what he's going to do usually. He throws like the same combo into takedown and so on, and does it so frequently that it is definitely possible to prep for. That being said, like if Van gives up some of the same positions that he did against Ray, it definitely could be trouble. But the reason why Van might be more suited than a lot of Pantoja's recent opponents to beat him is because the proficiency in the body strikes. If you're trying to knock out Pantoja, it's probably not going to go well. But if you just focus on hitting the body as frequently as possible, and you can stuff the first few takedowns, there's much more opportunity there, in my opinion. Should JDM fight Southpaw 80% of the fight? Against Islam, I would say if he was fighting Ilya, he should. Against Islam, I don't think that you need to fight in any specific stance the majority of the fight. I would say switching stances may actually help here, especially if you can switch mid-combo. So again, like the combo where Volk dropped Islam in round 2, I think it was off of a stance switch, if I remember correctly. So stuff like that definitely can mess with Islam's defensive sequences. I don't see Van handling pressure as Pantoja isn't backing up. Pantoja's made a lot of improvements in his last fight. Very possible. It is very weird that every fighter has said that they got offered money to throw a fight. Or all... just like Isaac Bulgarian. Fair. I mean, I also don't know how much of that is true and how much of it is just like attention seeking. Because there was also the whole thing with like Lando Venata making the joke, and I think people took it seriously when it wasn't like actually meant to be serious. I've offered Islam a lot of money to take a dive against JDM. Fair. Pantoja's cardio is going to be a question mark. He looked like he was slowing down pretty bad against Kaikar France after round 2. To be fair, Pantoja always looks like he's slowing down and then is okay. So it's a weird thing where like his body language doesn't always match what he can actually keep doing. But yeah, I mean, especially if Van is blasting body strikes, then we may actually really see him slow down. I swear to God, if Moreno gets dusted by Tyra, then followed by Van losing to Pantoja, I'm gonna call him live and check out. Those are unfortunately very possible. I'm very 50-50 on Van Pantoja right now. I don't know who I'm going to end up picking. Also for Pantoja versus Merab, who do you think wins? I think Merab's pressure will be too much. Yeah, I have to lean Merab, but it's a fight where I would not be shocked if Pantoja pulled something off, because Merab has never fought someone with that level of like finishing ability on the ground. Win or lose, Van will still be at the top of flyweight for a very long time. Yeah, for sure. I mean, his career is just getting started. He has plenty of time. I actually, like, I don't think that they really should have taken a title shot this quickly, which might sound weird, but if I'm managing Van here, after, like, the Royval win, I immediately call out someone else. Like, I want to get 2 to 3 more fights in for Van before fighting for the title, because I feel like by then he would be developed enough to really have a good chance in the fight. Now he definitely still has a chance, but we'll have to see if he had enough time. Seokyeon Ko's grappling is very good, definitely one of the more underrated prospects, which he had more submission ability, though. Yeah, same. How hard are you going to rewrite the algorithm if it picks Islam? I would not be shocked if it picked Islam. We'll have to see what happens on Sunday. Or I'll probably run it, I'll run it Saturday night after this event. Kopp is better than Pantoja and Van. I disagree with that one, personally. I feel like Van and Tyra is going to have a Moreno-Figgy type of rivalry after Pantoja retires. It's very possible. I disagree with your Tyra versus Moreno pick. I think Tyra lacks head movement and variety and strikes to hurt Moreno. I think Moreno TKOs Tyra. I mean, I say this as so, and again, Moreno is my favorite flyweight of all time. I don't give him any chance in that fight. I shouldn't say I don't give him any chance, right? Moreno will always have a chance. Moreno is a very skilled fighter. But I don't see him dealing with the takedowns that Tyra uses, because Moreno has shown a lot of difficulties with that whole, like, okay, we're going to shoot, then work to the body lock, and then cut the corner to the back type of takedown before. And Tyra loves that takedown. So even if Moreno is winning on the feet, Tyra just needs one takedown, and he's not letting go for the entire round, especially over 3 rounds. Like, I don't see how Moreno can win this. Are you aware of the Ellen John rumors? I think it's an excellent fight to make him come back for John. Yeah, I would definitely like to see that fight. Who do you think will win between Kopp and Royval? I'll have to do tape study. I'm not sure, honestly. Van literally sped run for that title. Ran that title run. 5-fight win streak in around 12 months after getting knocked out as well. Yeah, it's a crazy run. I mean, unless Pantoja retires after the Van fight, if he loses, Van would need to beat Pantoja twice. Not very confident in that. If Van can beat Pantoja once, I will pick him to beat Pantoja twice. That I'm not like. I think that if Van shows that he's that good, then he's that good. But can he beat him the first time? I mean, that's a tough ask for sure. Do you think Algo accepts bribes? Unfortunately, I don't think it is capable. Also, who do you think is the toughest matchup for Pantoja? Kopp, Van, or Tyra? Technically speaking, I would say that Tyra is probably the hardest matchup, because Tyra is the only one who can match Pantoja's grappling, in my opinion. Thoughts on Vallejos versus Giga? It's a good fight. I'm probably going to pick Vallejos. I think that especially because Vallejos is going to get in the boxing range and not let Giga kick a lot, he should have the advantage there. Could a prime Moreno run the bantamweight gauntlet? Probably. I mean, he would definitely have to bulk up a little bit, in my opinion, but he has the build to be able to do it. Also, I think Tyra beats Pantoja. Yeah, it's very possible, because as long as Tyra can negate the wrestling, he may be able to use his knees up the middle, and again, he has relatively technical striking as well. Like, he did hurt Ravel in the feet a few times, which was a good look to say the least, and of course dropped Park in the next fight. So, yeah, I mean, I could definitely see Tyra beating Pantoja. Why is the spinning elbow a trend now? Mainly because for a long time, people just kind of were unpunished, just entering the pocket recklessly and overextending into the pocket more specifically. So now people realize, like, okay, you can just throw the spinning elbow if someone is overextending in the pocket often, and you don't even really have to aim it that well. It'll probably land. I'm not sure if you store your Instagram stat score sheets, but who has the highest stats so far, overall total? Offhand, I'm not positive. It may be Chimaev, just because I put his wrestling stats so high. I'm not 100% sure though, because Chimaev's striking defense did definitely drop it, so it may not be the highest. It could be John Silva, but I'm not sure. Spinning elbows are a great way to counter pressure. Yeah, exactly. Why do you reckon Islam's striking arsenal is so limited? Is the only champion in modern times I could think of that essentially never calf kicks besides maybe Merab. I think that Islam has a very strict game plan that he adheres to, and anything that he feels like is outside of what is necessary for that game plan, he completely ignores. Speaking of Chimaev, how do you see Fluffy versus Strickland going, and both of them versus Chimaev going? I think Strickland will probably TKO Fluffy, which I know everyone does not like Strickland and TKO in the same sentence, but I do think that's what will happen. I do think Chimaev will probably win a decision against Strickland, but I would not be shocked if Strickland won. You got a magic wand, what do you change about the UFC? Good question. I would probably increase fighter pay, but decrease the leniency for bad performances. So I would make it like almost in a way slightly closer to, say, glory structure, where it's like it's not uncommon to just remove someone if they have a performance you dislike, rather than like, oh, they have to go on a losing streak or something. Rob Kafka loads in the Jan fight. That is fair. I thought Duplessis lost the fight when there was zero urgency on defending the takedown at the very beginning of the second round. Everyone knew Chimaev would dominate the first round. Yeah, the pulling the guillotine was also a very, very bad look. As Mobsar retired, he pulled out of his last one and has disappeared. I have no idea what Mobsar is doing. John or Volk? I feel like John will get ground and pound TK'd by Volk. It's a very good matchup for John, because, again, I still think he would probably beat Lopez like 9 times out of 10, but the danger with Lopez is, again, Lopez can finish you if you make a single mistake in any realm. So Volk, on the other hand, does not have that ability. So John could make mistakes and be perfectly fine, and he has the much greater finishing ability, and he has a much greater ability to set it up than someone like Lopez does against Volk. So I think it's a very good matchup for John overall. Why doesn't Strickland utilize his wrestling? Because he has an ego about it, right? And it's like some fighters just don't use their full skill sets because of their ego. UFC are starting to do that, albeit to be fair, and do that a bit to be fair. Boudet, Rosenstrike, Mokaev. Yes, it's just not where I would have fully liked it to be. Like, I didn't have a problem with Boudet. or Rosenstrike, especially with how terrible heavyweight is in general. Mokaev, yes, that's a little bit of a better one, but there's definitely like again, they should have gotten rid of Jailton Almeida instantly, in my opinion. Is it me, or does Michael Morales have weird movement? It looks like he's sneaking up on someone to scare them. I'd have to rewatch his tape to see. I saw Mobzar on Insta calling out Volk for a title shot. He's always calling for a title shot. Aloktin, Jean, or Ilya? I think it's near 50-50. I think Mobzar gets whooped by Diego and Volk. Yeah, I agree there. Thoughts on Michael Morales walking around 210 pounds. That is a lot. That's a lot of weight to cut, though. I don't know how it's going to hold up if he has to go into like rounds 4 and 5. I do think DDP versus Yuri would go at either 185 or 205. See, I don't like the thought of Yuri dropping to 185 because his style is reliant on him being as durable as possible and having as much cardio as possible. And if he did an actual weight cut to 185, I don't know if those would necessarily be fully intact. He would also be at more of a speed disadvantage there. So I just don't love the division for him. I'd probably have to pick DDP there. Ilya versus Islam for the new 165 division needs to happen if Islam loses. That would be nice, but I doubt it will happen. What made Jose Aldo's takedown defense so good? Just fundamentals. I mean, his fundamentals were very clean with how he defended. I think Yuri will have the same issue as Alex being drained to 185. His chin will be much worse. I don't think he'll have as big an issue because he is, like, even at 205, he's walking around a lot lighter than Alex did. Like, than Alex did at 185. So I don't think he's going to be as drained, but yeah, it's definitely going to be something. Michael Morales doesn't use his reach effectively. I think it's an easy win for Brady via submission. I would say Morales uses his jab somewhat effectively. What's your take on Sean versus Morales? I think Morales is a serious sleeper pick. How is Brady going to take him down, as a matter of fact? How would you see anyone beating him? Well, the question for Morales against Brady is, can Morales be perfect? Because if he gets taken down once, that might be the fight. Not because he's necessarily going to be submitted instantly, but because he'll take enough damage and be in enough of a threatening situation that it's going to be a lot easier for Brady to get the next takedown. So I do have to lean towards Brady. Who wins, Diego or Murphy? I'd probably lean Murphy, but it's a tough call. Let's do Piper versus Vittori for science to really test that chin. Yeah, I've wanted that matchup. I've actually wanted Gaudier versus Vittori also. Enough people to talk about your 3 a.m. developer escapade went. I'm not sure if you missed when I talked about it earlier, but so how do I phrase this? That agency that I talked to was more professional than the other agency that I talked to, which is good. However, when I emailed them afterwards, they kind of implied that they don't have back-end engineers in-house. So for context of what that means for anyone who has no idea what I'm talking about, basically like dealing with servers and databases and stuff like that, they don't have like actual staff that does that. They just have like the visuals of like, say, a website or app and such, is what they kind of implied. Now, I don't know if they just spoke incorrectly because they're not like English speakers necessarily. So that's possible. So I asked them to clarify. But if it's actually the case that they don't have that, then I may be a lot more tentative in working with them. Thoughts on Jean's grappling defense? Him getting pounded by Lopez was a bad look, not gonna lie. I disagree there. I think that he gave up the takedown because he went for a spinning back kick out of nowhere. Or sorry, a spinning hook kick, I think. But that has nothing to do with your actual takedown defense. That's just really bad decision making. And then if you give up mount against Lopez, like, yeah, you're not getting out. It doesn't matter who you are. So I don't think that really means much in all honesty. Getting TKO'd by Bilal is kind of embarrassing. I mean, it happens. Bilal is much better than people think. I don't quite agree there. I have a very low opinion of Bilal, but I do think it was a very bad matchup for Brady. Yuri claims he practiced 1-2 and 1-2-3 for 24 hours. I don't believe it, but it's Yuri, so there might be some truth there. I mean, I believe it. It's Yuri. I don't think he would lie. Who beats a prime Conor in your opinion? That's a tough question. At what division? Prime Conor was a lot better than people want to give him credit for. Oliveira would have been help for Conor. I actually disagree there. Oliveira is too hittable for someone who has the one-punch knockout power of Conor, especially early. Sure, good luck in your search, man. Thank you. Hard to tell how Michael Morales will look against Sean Brady because he's improving a lot fight to fight. That is true. Bilal or Morales? I'd probably lean Morales. Getting TKO'd by Bilal literally just doesn't happen. It was definitely... It's not the best look at the time, but Bilal became champion, so it is what it is. Jack Della beats a prime Conor. That would be an interesting matchup. The commentary in the build-up for Ilya Charles was so strange, just like they expected Charles to digivolve into prime Conor. Yeah, people were, especially after the fight, people were like, oh, why was Charles walking forwards and not like throwing kicks on the outside? It's like, have you ever seen Charles just throw kicks on the outside in circle? That just wasn't going to happen. Who do you hate more, Bilal, Umar, or Arman? Probably Arman. Sorry, not Arman. Probably Umar, rather. I just find Bilal annoying and boring. He's whatever. But, like, at least, like, he didn't get things through pure nepotism. Arman is just Arman. I mean, he's, like, whatever. Umar is, like, the only one who I feel like is really actively annoying. Not sure if you picked Ian to beat Bilal by TKO or not, but if you are picking it, why wouldn't JDM TKO him? I was screaming at my TV. I'm not confident of whether I will pick Ian Gary by TKO or decision. I could see either. But I do think that Gary has the potential to do so, especially if he focuses on setting up head kicks and such more. JDM versus some all-time prime welterweights. I do think he would struggle with GSP. I do think he would beat Usman, though. I think Leon might crack Prates for the first time. It's possible. I still am picking Prates just because Leon doesn't fight in the way that he would need to win this. Why not just make an MMA coach GPT on OpenAI Marketplace and market it using your socials? Well, first of all, because then you can only use OpenAI stuff, right? Like, they have... I haven't looked at their whole, like, network in a while. I know they definitely have tools to use there, but it's not the same as, like, okay, I can make whatever I want to make within my own app. I'm down with a backbone versus JDM. I would still pick JDM. Shavkat or Prates? Prates. Shavkat doesn't move his head at all. How do you think GSP versus JDM fight plays out? I think GSP would take a decision. He would get enough takedowns. How would prime GSP do against Ilya at 170? I feel like GSP jab was too good and Ilya wouldn't be able to get in the pocket and GSP would probably take him down. GSP had a good skill set to beat Ilya. So I'd probably lean towards GSP there. What do you think Rufi's ceiling in lightweight is? Can he bounce back and still become a top contender? I think Rufi could still be a top contender. He just needs to figure out how to deal with pressure better. Are GSP and Conor the only guys to beat Ilya? I mean, I'm sure there's more, but the only ones I can think of off the top of my head. Bisping was arguably scoring more points off bottom against GSP from what I recall. What do you think GSP does after getting the takedowns against Jack? Bisping versus GSP was a weird fight. In all honesty, I think that against Jack, he would probably just work for submissions, never find them, but like have enough activity that would win him the round. Can John Silva beat Ilya? I mean, he's certainly capable of it. Would it happen? I'm not sure. I think that's very 50-50. Yoel or Alex? I'd probably lean Alex, but not terribly confidently. What makes it 50-50? I mean, I think that Silva's setups and reads are generally better, but Ilya's adherence to a very strict game plan in which he is like just gonna look for that one shot is superior in that category. So it really depends which one ends up mattering more. What do you think is the percentage of game planning and just improving should go into a fight? Like how much should be game planning and how much should just be technique improving? I mean, you should game plan as much as possible. Even like obviously you want to improve your techniques, but I don't think they're like mutually exclusive things. Like you should be continuously doing both because there's a limit to how much you can train in a day and like actually get anything out of it. So once you reach that limit, you should be doing game planning and tape study. By KO or decision, I lean KO. I'm worried Khalil might have taken too much damage and may not look the same again. I mean, that's probably true, realistically speaking. Rumble versus Aspinall, Rumble. For Dariush versus BSD, what's your early prediction? I think Dariush is just way too chinny and BSD will knock him out quick. I don't think he can sub Dariush. Yeah, I mean, I think BSD just gets in the pocket and lands an elbow and puts him away. We were putting the house on JDM by Boston Crab. Fair. Merab or Connor? That's an interesting question. I'd have to think about that more. Do champs get 30? Do champs really get 30% better when they get the belt? No, they don't. Thanks for the answer. I worded that one like a spaz. No worries. BSD urge well, especially after seeing each of their last fights. I would say BSD. At the time, I would have probably picked Alvarez, but now, now that we know the BSD is fighting more intelligently and Alvarez has some issues in his game, yeah, maybe BSD wins that. I hope Pratas keeps working on his counter game because it's his biggest hole in his game. Yeah, I agree. Rumble versus Ngannou and Jones. I'd pick Rumble against Ngannou, but I'd pick Jones against Rumble. Connor or Hamzat pound for pound. For now, I'd say Connor. We'll see if it changes with this. What video games do you play? I mean, I don't play much anymore, but I used to play Witcher, Total War Rome, stuff like that. I think Khalil has taken more damage in his fights and still looks the same. He's one of those guys that just eats shots until they go out. You never see him wobbled. I mean, I don't think he's ever taken the same amount of damage as he took in the last two fights. Like, especially the Yuri fight, in all honesty, because I think against Alex, a lot of it was exhaustion, so it might have not been as bad as it looked, but Yuri just, actually killed him. Merab or Volk? I think Merab because of the styles. Since Merab isn't really a control grappler, tough fight though. Yeah, I could see it being a close decision in either direction. I might lean Merab at this point. Also, commentators, best commentator team. I don't mind Senko and Felder. Isn't bad when not with DC. Yeah, I like Senko and Felder. I actually don't mind Dominic Cruz as well. I know Dominic Cruz occasionally says something questionable, but I would say on average he's better than most of the others. But yeah, I would say that DC and Rogan are the worst. Then after that, I would actually say Anik isn't great because he'll just say random stuff. Other people are finally starting to pick up on this, so I'm glad I don't sound crazy anymore. but like nothing will be happening. Like a punch will whiff by like 2 feet, and Anik will be like, "Oh, great cross from whoever," right? Like, what are you talking about? How do these three fare against each other? Pereira, Romero, and Hamzat all light heavyweight. Pereira beats Romero. Romero beats Hamzat. And Hamzat could beat Pereira. That's kind of a 50-50. That's kind of a rock, paper, scissors. Do you think Protez could beat Gary in a rematch? Also, how does Protez versus Morales go? I mean, Protez versus Gary will probably always be a close fight. I'm not going to be confident either way there. Protez versus Morales, I'd probably lean Protez. I rewatched John versus Diego. Diego was getting cooked by John in round 2. Yeah, John was definitely proving he was way ahead on the feet. He just rushed. What genre do you listen to, and whatever you do don't say Imagine Dragons. Pretty much anything besides country. I mean, I don't even know how to describe a lot of the genres, in all honesty. Fitzgerald and Cruz are underrated together, fair. Cruz is fine when not ego-checking other commentators. Yeah, that's true. Thoughts on Wellmaker predominantly training with amateurs and regional fighters. That's not a great idea, in my opinion. Maybe just because I've watched Bilal versus JDM a lot, but his performance in that one was abysmal. Fair. Yeah. Who do you think Selkild should fight next? That's a good question. I think he's probably ranked now, right? Let's see. Maybe you... Yeah, I think actually you probably give him a lot. No, that's wrong weight class. What am I talking about? No, is it wrong weight class? What weight class is he? No, he's 155. Yeah. What am I talking about? Maybe you give him... Maybe Rufy? Rufy off of a loss wouldn't be a bad fight. And both of these fighters are currently involved in custody battles, yeah. And do you think Hamzat is as good as everyone says he is? I don't think he's as good as everyone says he is, but I still think he could win a lot of fights this way. Because he has a style where, like, maybe skill for skill he's not the best, but it's still difficult to counter, especially with how his, like, physicality melds with his style, if that makes any sense. Is Gaethje the most violent fighter? I think there's probably more violent fighters, but maybe like one of the more violent top level fighters, if you want to put it that way. If Rob defends his title 2 more times, he'll be tied with Cruz WEC days. That's pretty solid. John and Prime Eldo. I'll lead John. Who would win, Mavzar or Murphy? That's a tough one to call because Murphy's takedown defense isn't spectacular, but he gets up very well. And on the feet, he's much better. I'd probably still lean Evloev, but I'm not positive. I think Selkild is extremely overrated. Yeah, he kind of is right now, in my opinion. Would you rather see Gaethje head kick Ilya out cold or Islam submit JDM? I'm trying to think who I'm more attached to. I actually don't think I'm like that emotionally attached to either of them. I feel like for my prediction, well, okay, I don't think anyone would blame me for picking Ilya against Gaethje. So maybe I'd rather JDM wins just so my prediction age is better there. But like, I'm not really emotionally attached either way. You think Valentina could set up the exact same head sequence against Io and Whaley? No. It worked on I because I is just not that level, but Whaley's not going to get caught by that. I'd rather watch 5-minute crafts than listen to country ballad. Got a lot of potential goats in 2026. Predictions for who loses their belts in 26. Let's see. I think Volk will either retire or lose his belt in 2026. Do you think that will happen? I think Pantoja may lose his belt in 2026. If he's, yeah, I think that there's a solid chance he does. Or retire again, one or the other. Other than that, I'm not sure. Rebechki is the most violent fighter. That's a fair pick. Yuri's the most violent fighter. That's also a fair pick. Does Islam have any chances to hurt Ilya? I mean, it's definitely possible, because whenever someone starts overly anticipating the takedown, it opens up a lot of striking. Anik was calling shots that JDM perfectly defended, and I honestly think that it could be a reason it was reasonably close on scorecards. I mean, I'd hope that the judges can't hear the commentators, but you never know. Ilya is the most violent. It's also not a bad pick. What fighters have the best chances to rock Ilya up on the feet? JDM and Silva, probably. Jolton Almeida is the most violent fighter. That's a good one. Alex will move up to heavyweight and vacate his belt. Yeah, I mean, if Alex moves up, then obviously 205 will change, and then heavyweight will change, because Alex would destroy Tom, in my opinion. The commentary on Bilal JDM was bad in general. Bilal finally starts to fight back in round 5. And Anik is yammering about Hart and championship. Yeah, I don't know. Anik, I don't know. How do you think a potential matchup between Esteban Ribovics and Nazim Sadikov goes? I think Ribovics TKOs him. Looks like Sadikov is starting to melt against Mata. I think it would be a very close fight. I think it would actually go to decision and be very close. Because both of them sometimes do rely on their durability. And I don't think Ribovics really has the finishing potential to put away Sadikov. I mean, I know he can hit people clean, but Sadikov does a good job of not taking fight-ending shots, even if he does get hit. Lopez is the most violent, and he swings like a rabid dog. Also not a bad pick, yeah. Eleanor Silva. I like John Ant because he says brain rot stuff like custody battles, like rage, etc. in the middle of the fight. I mean, I kind of dislike him because of that, but fair. Muhammad Yahya is the most pound-for-pound brutal fighter in UFC history. He has a lot of heart, at least. Expand on Pereira destroying Tom. I mean, Pereira is just so much better than him at everything except pure wrestling, right? So, and maybe pure grappling, right? But I don't see Tom being able to take down Pereira. I just don't think it's going to happen. Pereira's movement is going to be too good for him. He's going to have the takedown defense prepped. And on the feet, it's just such a massive difference. Nearly 3-1 underdog, almost 50-45 the champion, everyone glazing Bilal, it's sad. I mean, at least we made money off of it. Was Pereira Ankh 1 a fluke? Who beats Pereira all time? I'm not going to say it was a fluke, but I would say that it was an indication that Pereira was just fighting way too frequently. Who beats Pereira all time? That's a tough one. I mean, he's very good for that weight class. I don't know. If Pereira becomes heavyweight champion, do you think he'll be the GOAT of the sport? Had he not lost to Adesanya the second time, it would be easy to say yes. Because he did, it's a little bit harder to say yes. Also, again, because he did technically lose the first fight to Ankalaev, even though he did avenge it. So it might be hard to call him the GOAT of the sport, but he'll definitely be up there. Oh yeah, because I always forget to do my promo. If you guys are betting on this card for some reason, if you're insane enough to be doing so, and you're not in my service yet, you may want to join, because in terms of betting, we're doing so ridiculously well this year. I think we're up, like, I'd have to check how much we're up at this point. We're definitely gonna, or I shouldn't say definitely, I think we're very likely to finish above 300 units profit this year, and that's just the default strategy, not counting any of the other tools. And of course, with the helper one I added, which is a new tool that we're using, we get even more value out of this stuff. So the link is at the end of the description. If you do want to join that, always feel free to ask me any questions regarding it. And yeah. Why did Pereira lose to such a simple tactic of playing possum? I don't know. Prime Izzy or Imavov? I feel like Izzy would edge out a decision. Imavov. This is not... So I feel like there's a misconception with Izzy that like he's washed or something. It's just the rest of the division got better. Izzy's boxing defense has always been atrocious. Like, quote-unquote prime Izzy, like even Izzy 4 or 5 years before that, still would have gotten caught by the overhand because he has terrible boxing defense. Thoughts on the difference between roughing style for Herzog in fights like Yaya versus fights like Cannonier? I think Herzog is just really radically inconsistent. I don't think it's like rigging or anything, I just think he's really inconsistent. Who has a better chance of being a 3-division champ, Ilya or Pereira? I'll say Pereira just because the path to it is much easier right now. Any validity to refs, judges altering fights? I could imagine judges for sure. Refs, I'm less inclined to believe that. Pereira lost because he doubled up on the left hook and Izzy caught him right there. He didn't lose because of Izzy playing possum. No, I do think to an extent he lost because of Izzy playing possum. I agree with who said that? With Isaac there. Because he wouldn't have used a combo like that if he didn't think that Izzy was very hurt and not going to throw back. Brezian versus Sadikov early prediction. Stupid matchup, 2 great prospects. I think Nazim gets a late TKO. I think Ziam takes a pretty easy decision because Sadikov is way too reliant on finding comeback moments in fights. He always falls behind. Eventually, you're gonna reach a point at which you cannot find a comeback moment because your opponent's just too technical. I think Ziam will be that opponent. After seeing the Tom Gon fight, I think Pereira would absolutely cook Tom. He's so open as well, and testament to how Buns heavyweight is. Yeah, I agree. Izzy was getting tagged by the human bridge, yes. Had Khabib not retired when he did and kept evolving, could you have seen him having beaten Izzy at 185? I think he would have had a better chance at beating Izzy at 185 than beating Usman at 170, to be fair. Do I think he would have? Probably not. His style was really made for 155, but it's possible. Thoughts on Ali Abdelaziz and him saying Islam beats Pereira at light heavyweight? I mean, it's Ali Abdelaziz. If you're taking anything he says seriously, that's the first problem. It should give Ziam a ranked opponent already. I agree. Charles beats Khabib. There's a chance. I would have picked Khabib by decision if that fight were to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if Charles subbed him. Nickel will get subbed by Vieira. That would be nice, but I doubt it's going to happen. Alright guys, we are probably going to end here for today. I appreciate you guys being here, even with such an anticlimactic card. When I do more streaming content in the future, we'll have to figure out how to deal with slow weeks, to say the least, add in more diversity in the content. But yeah, thanks again for coming, everyone. Appreciate you guys. If you're watching this card, hope you guys have fun, and if you're betting, good luck with that. So have a good night, everyone, and see you guys soon.